What is going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're finally going to be getting the super cheap Turbo Civic on E85. In the last video we got our Burton Racing flex fuel kit all plumbed in, wired up, and I showed you guys how to set it up in the Hondata S300. So if that's something you guys are looking for, or you want to know how to set up the fuel compensation tabs for all of the flex fuel stuff, make sure to go back and check that video out, because judging by how today's video went, we did a pretty good job at getting that set up, especially for our first time. So really happy with how all that went. So if that's the information you guys are looking for, make sure to go back and check out that video. But before we can jump right into getting E85 in the car, we do need to take it out and make some runs on pump 93 to make sure that we have the tune dialed in perfectly before we start utilizing those flex fuel compensation tables. Now also, once again, I have to give a huge shout out to Clean Injection for supplying us with the 1500cc injectors that you guys are going to see us running today. So if you guys are in the market for a nice, affordable set of injectors, make sure to go out and check out Clean Injection. They have been absolutely phenomenal with all the sets that we've ran in the super cheap Turbo Civic. So with that being said, let's get through the intro and jump right into today's video. Now that we've gotten through the intro, let's get the Turbo Civic fired up and go make some runs on pump 93. Like I had mentioned, we never really worked on the lower boost sections of the map because when we installed our new injectors, we went right to 20 pounds of boost and never really planned to be below that. But now that we're finally getting the car on flex fuel, I do want to make sure that the entire map is dialed in for pump 93 so that on E85 it has a good base for our fuel compensations to work off of. So let's get this thing fired up and go out and make some rips. Take a look at the computer real quick, see if anything looked out of whack, and then we'll go from there. It did seem really lazy down low though. And take a look at this log and we'll go from there. Alright guys, I made a few changes in there and we're gonna go ahead and try this again. In second gear, it was pretty close. got it to a point where it went lean, and now I've just been tickling fuel back into it to try to get this thing a little bit more consistent and more level. And with any luck, here soon we'll be finally dumping some ethanol into this thing. So let's get it fired up and go take it for another try. Seemed a little bit leaner than I'd like still, but I will say, leaning this thing out, we definitely found some extra free power, because when I run it rich, this thing's kind of lazy, and leaning it out to that 12 to 12.5, this thing rips a lot harder, like noticeably. But I still want to keep it safe at like 11.5 to maybe 12.0, but preferably 11.5. So we'll have to see. Alright guys, so this one is starting to look much better. I'm a lot happier with that. Let's head back to the house. We'll do one more on the way, and if everything checks out or looks similar to this, we'll probably go ahead and start throwing E85 in this thing. Than I would like under wide open, but it definitely seems to like it because the car feels noticeably quicker with it leaned out. It doesn't feel lazy. So we'll take a look at this, but really hoping that we'll be good to throw some E85 in this thing. I've been waiting to put E85 in this thing for a long time. All right guys, now that we've got the tune to a point where I'm happy with it on pump 93, we can finally start putting some E85 in it. Now if you guys have been following this build since the start, you know that there's actually a dent in the gas tank, so the car will actually run out of fuel at half a tank. So we're not going to be able to get all of the pump gas out, but we'll still have some room to put some E85 in. Then we'll just have to drive it and keep topping it off with E85 till the pump gas works its way through the system. But it might actually work out good that way because it gives us the ability to start out at a lower content and work our way up, so that no matter what pump we stop at and what fuel blend we put in it, the tune should be pretty close. So let's go ahead and start pumping some 93 out of this thing so we can make room for the E85. So I looked through some of my AN stuff and I found a couple of these old lines from different projects. So we're gonna go ahead and just disconnect right here at the fuel rail. We'll hook this line up to it and run it into a gas can, and then we can just command the fuel pump to run with the Hondata, and we should be able to drain this tank. All right guys, we got Dad holding the gas can. I'm gonna go ahead and command the pump on with the Hondata, and we'll pump some of the fuel out of this tank. So to make the pump run, it's actually pretty easy. We just go over here under online, then we go down to test outputs, and then test fuel pump / drain fuel tank. So we're gonna go ahead, check that, and it'll start pumping the fuel out. Ready? There we go. So we'll just let it sit here and pump for a minute and see what happens. We can see the fuel levels going down, so we're definitely getting some fuel out of this thing. Still flowing?
Shut her off. Yeah, shut her off, quick. Ooh, I didn't know what was that for.
Now that we got that thing pumped down about as much as it'll pump out, we can go ahead, put our other line back on this thing and start dumping some E85 in it. We're finally ready to start dumping some E85 in this thing. Sadly, the only E85 pump we have usually runs closer to like E60. So we'll just have to see what this 5-6 gallons will do. Definitely smells like E85. Not the best E85 I've ever smelt, but you can tell. We're on can number 2. I put 4 gallons in each can, and we just pumped out 5 gallons, so this thing will probably take roughly 6. So we'll go for roughly half of this. Alright guys, I think we're going to try right there and see what it does. So let's go ahead, run the pump for a little bit and see what the content sensor comes up to and see what we've got for content. Now that we dumped in the E85 that we had, we can go ahead and run the pump again. You guys can see the ethanol content is right here. We're at 9%, which is right about what the pump gas has been. So let's go ahead and run it, and we should see that number start to come up. Yep, 20, 30, 40. So it looks like we're leveling off right around 38%. So I'm gonna let the pump run here for another minute, and then we'll start the car up, see how it runs. All right guys, let's try to start this thing up for the very first time on E85. Looks like about 41%. Wideband still heating up. At 30% ethanol, we're adding 10% fuel. And then at 60, we're adding 25. So right now we're somewhere in between. And it seems to be pretty close. We're at 42% ethanol right now. And it seems to be really close to what we had for an AFR before, because I idle this thing a little on the rich side. Let it run for a few more minutes to see if that ethanol content changes around at all, and then we'll go take this thing for the first drive with any ethanol in it. So if you guys seen the last video where we actually installed our flex fuel kit, I showed everything on how to set it up in the Hondata. I showed how we set up all of our fuel compensation, our ignition compensation, how we wired it into the ECU and everything, how much ignition we're going to be adding for what percent ethanol and all that good stuff. So if that's the information you guys are looking for, or that's something you want to see, make sure to go back and check out our last video, because I covered all of that stuff in pretty good detail. So we've already got that all set up, so we are basically ready to go take this thing for a ride and see if our guesstimates were close. Looks like we're still staying right at about 42%, so let's go ahead and take it around the block real quick and see what it does. See how it does. A lot of people were telling me that these little D series set up like mine, you'll actually notice a difference, even just drivability on E85. So we'll have to see. On most of my vehicles that I've put flex fuel in, I've never noticed a big difference other than like peak power. Maybe a little bit of drivability, but a lot of people were telling me that it's going to be pretty noticeable on something like this. Now keep in mind, we're still only at 42% ethanol content, but should be pretty decent. So we'll have to run it like this for a little while, check the tune, get it dialed in, and then we can keep topping it off. I will say, even just very light throttle inputs, it does seem like it's a little bit more torquey. You got to remember that this engine, when not in boost, doesn't make a whole lot of torque or horsepower. So any little bump that we can get out of boost is going to be noticeable. So it does feel like maybe it's a little bit more responsive, or when you go to pull up a little hill or something, I feel like I have to give it less throttle input. As far as the compensations go though, I think we made a pretty good guess. Does seem like it wants to spool a little better though. wait for the traffic to die down a little bit, and we'll go take it out and make some runs. I mean, honestly, guys, it seems to be driving really good. So we'll hit it again first thing in the morning and go out, get some logs, and see how it does. Alright guys, so it is the next day, and as you seen last night, we put some E85 in this thing for the very first time. We took it around the block real quick. It looks like our ethanol content's going to sit right around 40 to 42%, but that makes sense for the ratio that we have in the tank right now. So we're going to go ahead, run it like this for a little bit, see how it does, and then hopefully run the tank down a little bit so we can put some more E85 in. So let's see how it starts since it sat overnight, and go take it for a ride. Alright, so it looks like it might need a little bit more fuel on startup. So let me go ahead and make that change real quick. And then we'll let this thing warm up and go take it for a rip. So just in case you guys missed the last video where we went through and set the tune all up for flex fuel, we are adding a few degrees based off of our ethanol content. I believe we're at 40-ish% right now, so we're probably only adding about a degree to a degree and a half. But as the content goes up, the ignition goes up as well. So it's based off of one of those tables. So the more content we have, the more ignition we're adding. And we also went through and set up our boost compensation. So for any given percent of ethanol, we are adding more boost as well. I also went pretty soft on that for the time being, just till we get this thing a little more dialed in. But at the moment, this thing seems to be doing pretty good. Actually looked really good, guys. So we'll go ahead, reset, and try it again. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at this log real quick. So I'm just gonna look at the percentage table. Not sure how well you guys can see it with sun glare and stuff, but if we look at our drivability table here, the low side, this thing was extremely close. So that is absolutely awesome to see. This is actually just as close, if not closer, than our gasoline table is. So really happy with what we decided to go with as far as the compensations go, because we have to input those percentage. We can see that there is a whole bunch of zeros and ones, a couple little twos and threes, but for the most part, extremely close. And then if we look over here at the high cam, so in boost, looks like we made around 20 pounds, and there are a whole bunch of zeros and ones here. So really happy with what we're seeing right there, guys. Let's go ahead, reset, and we will go do it again. Absolutely phenomenal, guys. Really happy with that. AFR looked so clean. Let's go back to the house, take a look at that log, and go from there. I can't get over how clean that log was, guys. That run was super clean. So taking a look at this table real quick, you guys can see it is looking really good, and it is extremely close, and it's basically mirroring what it did on pump 93, which is exactly what we want, because that means that our compensation tables are right on the money. So just like it did on pump gas, it looks like we could pull a little bit more fuel out right through here, but everything else is looking extremely close. So let's go ahead and take a look at the VTEC table, and over here, it's more of the same. This thing looks extremely close. So through here, we could pull a tiny bit, and then down in here, it is right on the money. So really happy with what we're seeing right here. At this point, I am 100% confident to put some more E85 in the car. But as you guys know, we just topped off the tank with the E85 we had, and it got our content level up to about 40 to 42%. So the only way to get that up higher is to either A, pump the tank out again and put some more E85 in, or go drive the car and just let it naturally run down so that we can keep topping it off with E85. Now, I'd really rather not pump the tank out, because then I'm just going to have that fuel sitting in a can until I'm ready to put it back in this car. So I think we're just going to have to take the time and go drive this thing around and run some of that fuel out of it. Looking at the data log here really quick, it also looks like our boost compensation table between the high table and the low table, so the boost blend is doing exactly what it should as well, because we made just about 24 PSI on this one. And I have to say the AFR looks extremely clean. It's about 11.5 the whole way. And it also looks like our ignition timing is working. I believe it added a little over a degree. So it is doing exactly what it should be doing. Everything looks really good as far as the data log goes as well. I also wanted to take a look and see how our clean injection 1500cc injectors are doing. So as you guys can see, this is about 7,000 RPM, 24 pounds of boost with an E40 ethanol blend, and we are at 47% duty cycle on the injectors. So these things have a ton of room left in them to keep going up with ethanol and to keep going up with boost. So really happy with these things, and they are doing their job perfectly. All right, guys, so as you seen yesterday, we took this thing out, did a log, and it was extremely close. I was actually really happy with how close it was right off the rip. So I was ready to put some more E85 in it, but as you know, we topped off the tank, didn't have any more room for it. So yesterday afternoon, me and Pops took the Turbo Civic out, and we drove this thing all over the place, went to some scenic overlooks, and it was actually just an all-around good afternoon. But we got to use up some of the fuel that was in the car, so I think we finally have some room to put some more ethanol in it and try to get the content up. Now, I'll throw a picture up on your guys' screen of what the table looked like after we got done taking this thing for a ride. And keep in mind, we drove it all over the place, and that map was looking extremely close. Now, I didn't do a bunch of boost runs because I had Pops with me, and we were kind of just cruising, checking out scenery and stuff like that. But the drivability on this thing was absolutely dialed, and by looking at the log before, we know that in boost it was very close as well. So let's go ahead and get the Turbo Civic fired up. We'll head over to our only local E85 pump, put some E85 in it, and see if we can't get that content level up a little bit more. So our content's still sitting right around 41-42%, and I have to say I was pretty surprised when we went ahead and dumped the E85 in the car originally, because obviously we had a half tank of pump gas still left. But as soon as we dumped that E85 in and I commanded the pump to run, literally within a few seconds, it was already up to 40 to 41%, and it has just stayed there. So it blended in extremely fast. So I'm hoping when we go top this thing off, it'll take a few gallons and the content will come up. Now, keep in mind, the pump by us, the content right out of the pump isn't very good. I've tested it a whole bunch, and we'll be lucky to get 60% ethanol from the pump. So I'm hoping between blending it and stuff, we'll be able to get up closer to 50, maybe even a little bit higher. And then we'll just have to keep driving this thing, topping it off with the 85, and try to flush it through the system and see what we can get out of this thing. All right, let's go get some more E85. Pulled up to our local E85 pump. Let's go ahead and top this thing off, fill a couple cans, and see what we get. So we just topped off the tank with some fresh E85. Like I said, the content level here is pretty low usually, but should still get us a little bit higher than the 41% we had on the way here. So let's go ahead, hit the key. I'll run the pump for a second here and see what our content comes up to. $50, $51. Sadly, it looks like that's about all we're gonna get out of this thing, guys. 51%. And it took a decent amount of fuel, so I was hoping we'd get a little higher, but like I said, the content level here is pretty bad to begin with. So probably on a good day, even if we completely drain the tank, we'd probably only get about 60 to 61 here. So that kind of bummer. But let's go ahead, fire this thing up, go take it for a ride, and see how the map looks. So giving it a little bit more cranking fuel definitely helped. Obviously it's warm now, so it's a little different than when it was cold before, but it did seem to start up pretty decent. So let's go ahead, get hooked back up, and take it for a ride and see what it does. Extremely close, guys. Very, very close. That's absolutely awesome. So it looks like our compensation guesses are very close. Guys, this is looking beautiful. A whole bunch of zeros and ones, and I'm really happy with it. So all in all, this thing is coming right along, and I wish we could get that content up even higher. It's only at 51%, but I have no more room in the tank, and like I said, the fuel from that particular pump is pretty weak anyways, but it's our only local E85 pump. We have one on the other side of the state, but it doesn't make sense for me to go up there and get fuel because I'm going to be running the one from this pump. So I wish it was a higher content, but from what we're seeing here, this thing is absolutely loving ethanol, and our tune is basically right on the money. So really, really happy with what we're seeing here. Alright guys, so as you've seen, we've got the Turbo Civic on E85, and this thing is absolutely ripping. Now, I definitely like to try to get the content level up a little bit more, but sadly, the only local E85 pump to us usually has a pretty low content. So we're gonna have to just keep running the car, flushing the fuel through the system, and hope that the content can come up a little bit. But I do have to say that our flex fuel compensation tables are working out perfectly. Once we got the tune dialed in on 93 at the beginning of the video, I really didn't have to touch it at all once we started adding E85. So those tables were dialed in almost perfectly, and I'm really happy with how they turned out. Now, if you guys want to see exactly how we set up all of our flex fuel capabilities and all of our flex fuel compensation tables, make sure to go back and check out last week's video. I went into extremely deep detail on how we set up all of those tables. As always, I appreciate you guys for checking out the channel. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell, and check us out on all of our other social media platforms: Facebook, TikTok, and Bought to Build Official on Instagram. Also, if you guys are looking for a way to help support the channel, make sure to check out our YouTube channel memberships. Any of those tiers will help support the channel, and every tier gets your name up here in the shop. As always, I appreciate you for sticking around to the end, and we will catch you on the next one.